Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Tuesday, December 16th, 2025. Matt Ho joins us now. Matt, thank you, my dear friend. Always a pleasure. I want to talk to you at some length on the terrific research you did recently on the true magnitude of the Defense Department's budget and how numbers of dollars going to the Defense Department are hidden even from members of Congress. But before we get there, some recent developments that I want to call to your attention. The Secretary of Defense, who calls himself the Secretary of War, announced just a few minutes ago that the tape of the murdered shipwrecked survivors being murdered, well, floating in the sea, according to Congressman Himes, for 45 minutes, and then being murdered, that the tape of that will not be revealed because it's classified. Well, obviously, they can declassify whatever they want because they've released the tapes of all these other killings, Matt, on this in the Caribbean, right?
Well, Judge, thanks for having me back on. Absolutely. And a week after, they had the results of the Signal Gate investigation come out, where it was shown just how cavalier Pete Hegseth was in sharing the details of impending U.S. airstrikes on Yemen, including manned aircraft, how he shared that not just with a reporter from The Atlantic, but also his wife and brother. But now this post-mortem footage of the massacre, the murder of two men adrift at sea, hanging onto the wreckage of a supposed drug boat, but we have no idea about the reality of that either. Yeah, it's just all fairy tale. It's all theater. It's all performance. It all, I get this sense that they feel almost like they're running out of time. Like, let's just get to it already with this Venezuela operation, because it's becoming too much for us to go through this production over and over again. I mean, because even a guy like Hegseth, whether he's sober or not, knows that what he's saying is just ridiculous, is ludicrous. And so even these men and women, even the Kristi Noems, the Pam Bondis, the Marco Rubios, I think they all have their limits in what is possible. And I think with this, they're reaching the end of that. And, how much more do they have to lie? How much more do they have to obfuscate before they're allowed to actually carry out the war that they want? And so I think that's what we're seeing here. I think, there's probably some idea in their heads that once we get Ukraine settled, then we can move on to Venezuela, and will be a great way to start the new year. Maybe that's, their judge, but no, this is just, the fact that we have to sit through this and watch this, not simply as observers, but as citizens, is, infuriating.
Well, this will infuriate you even more. We have the clip of him saying it, and then we're going to follow it with another clip made just a few minutes afterwards by Senator Adam Schiff, who has seen the tape and argues how vital it is for for members of Congress to see it. They only showed it to 8 of them, I think, and for the American public to see it. So, Chris, back to back, number 17 and number 18.
Also going to tomorrow allow the HASC and SASC to see the unedited video of the September 2nd, alongside with Admiral Bradley, who has done a fantastic job, has made all the right calls, and we're glad he'll be there to do it. But in keeping with long-standing Department of War policy, Department of Defense policy, of course, we're not going to release a top secret, full unedited video of that to the general public. HASC and SASC and appropriate committees will see it, but not the general public.
The public should see this, and I hope that we'll have support to make it public. I found the legal explanations and the strategic explanations incoherent, but I think American people should see this video, and all members of Congress should have that opportunity. I certainly want it for myself.
All right. Well, I guess we're still looking for the Senator Schiff clip, but you can see how he doesn't want the American public to know what happened. He has no choice but to show it to the committees. When we find this Senator Schiff clip, you'll see the intimation in there that Congress may order it to be made public. Do we have it, Chris? Here we go.
The public should see this, and I hope that we'll have support to make it public. I found the legal explanations and the strategic explanations incoherent, but I think American people should see this video, and all members of Congress should have that opportunity. I certainly want it for myself.
You know, the first time we looked at that, which was off air, I didn't notice that Hegseth was scowling over Senator Schiff's shoulder.
Right. I mean, that's one thing that is interesting, I think, for people who haven't been in these spaces, is the proximity that these men and women are in of each other all the time. And so they will often say these types of things with their adversary literally standing right next to them, as we saw in that clip. Adam Schiff, of course, Senator of California, made his bones the last number of years on Russiagate. I mean, the idea that we're supposed to now trust Schiff when he lied for years about issues of foreign affairs, that's a bit rich. But I think Schiff's description of the incoherence that is coming from here, just like the upside down reality, as if we're talking to a drunk toddler or listening to a drunk toddler with their explanations as to why they did something. The idea, it's very simple. It's very clear, I think, to most of us, Judge, that if they show the video, then everybody knows that they're lying. Everyone knows that Tom Cotton lied his butt off with regards to this. These men were not trying to flip over a boat and get back into the fight and radio their comrades to link up with them, or whatever story Cotton and the administration have put forward. So I think they're going to try and do everything they can to keep this hidden until something else can surpass the interests or the attention of the media.
And if all of that isn't enough to get under your skin, this probably will as well. This, to me, even though the invasion of Iraq was under false pretenses, but with the belief of weapons of mass destruction, what we will now play for you, to me, is an insult to you, to veterans, and to the people standing behind Trump as he articulated it. Watch this, number 19, Chris.
But there's no doubt that America's adversaries are trafficking fentanyl into the United States, in part because they want to kill Americans. That's why today I'm taking one more step to protect Americans from the scourge of deadly fentanyl flooding into our country. With this historic executive order I will sign today, we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, which is what it is. No bomb does what this is doing. 200 to 300,000 people die every year that we know of. So we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction.
Now, legally, that means nothing. It's like calling somebody a narco-terrorist. It's just a political statement. But how does the military, who lost life and limb under the false belief that they were pursuing weapons of mass destruction, think about this kind of nonsense?
Well, it goes a step further than that, Judge, because within the veteran community, you've had an overdose epidemic greater than you've had in the general society. So whether it's because of veterans self-medicating to deal with their wounds, whether it be physical or psychological from the war, using narcotics as a method to try and manage their trauma, or the fact that the VA overprescribed opioids for many years. Within the veteran community, we've had many overdoses, again, at a greater rate than you find in the general public. The last young man that we lost from my company that was in Iraq, one of our corpsmen, one of our sailors, Doc Henley, he overdosed a few years ago. Whether that was accidental or a suicide, doesn't really matter to his wife and kids, does it?
Right.
So
I don't want to gainsay this at all. It's horrible, but the numbers are nowhere near what the president said. It's about 50,000 a year. It's 50,000 too many, but it's not 200,000.
Right, exactly. So this exaggeration, right, and that's I think the point with for veterans, as you were asking, in the military, the idea that we had this Iraq War, we went to it on these lies of weapons of mass destruction, and then you have this epidemic, this scourge, still in the veterans community from overdoses, and they're lying about that in order to get another Iraq War, right? I mean,
Right.
so just the insult upon insult here, just the abuse, the debasement of the military and veterans for rank political purposes, for obscene, just obscenities that are cloaked in these justifications that can't even hold up to you releasing a tape. You've got to make this big lie up about how it's top secret. Well, what about the other 24 videotapes you've released, Mr. Secretary? I mean, those weren't top secret. I mean, so this is just, I think, as you're alluding to, Judge, just one more brutalization, one more diminishment or debasing of the military and the veterans community by politicians for their own political self-interest.
Wow. How large and what contributes to how large is and what contributes to the Pentagon budget for 2026?
So the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization, which was just passed by the House and awaiting confirmation by the Senate, and this is the reconciliation. So this is the compromise between the two houses. The National Defense Authorization Act, which is done annually, is $901 billion. And that covers the entirety of the national security establishment. So people will sometimes see different numbers on the Pentagon budget. That's because the Pentagon is appropriated money directly, just as the Department of Energy is appropriated money directly for the nuclear weapons program it manages, just as the intelligence programs are appropriated directly. And that causes all kinds of confusion because it's not very clear. It's not, it's rather opaque, not transparent. But if you look at the NDAA for FY26, you're looking at a $901 billion authorization to spend money for the nation's national security interests. And this covers, again, the Pentagon. It covers the intelligence programs. It covers the military assistance programs and the weapon sales that fall under the Department of State. And it covers the Department of Energy. What it doesn't cover are three key things. One is the supplemental that was passed last spring by the Congress that gave the Pentagon $153 billion more. Of that $153 billion, over $100 billion of that is applied to FY26. So when you look at the actual amount of money appropriated for national defense for FY26, it's not $901 billion, it's over $1 trillion. However, that leaves out two very important things. One, it leaves out the cost of veterans care. And if anyone thinks that veterans care shouldn't be included in the overall cost of our national defense, I don't know what to tell you. You haven't been paying attention for the last decades. So the cost this year, Judge, for the Veterans Administration, for health care, for benefits, for disability pensions, et cetera, for men and women like myself, it's $440 billion.
Oh, good Lord.
Right. I mean, so you have within the VA a massive budget that is 50% higher than the actual Pentagon budget was in 2001 just by itself. And then on top of that $440 billion for the Veterans Administration, you have interest payments. So go back to 2021, at the time of the American departure or retreat from Afghanistan, those 20 years from 2001 to 2021, by that time in August of 2021, the U.S. had spent over $1 trillion in interest already on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And by 2030, the estimate is that we'll have spent $2 trillion just on interest and debt payments on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's just the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. When you bring in the entirety of this military spending, the entirety of the war spending over the decades, we spend conservatively $300 billion a year on interest for the military and past war spending, right? And that's a conservative estimate. So when you look at the $1 trillion we'll spend servicing the $37 trillion debt, the conservative estimate is that $300 billion of that is for past military spending and war spending. So when you put all that together, Judge, the cost that we will spend on war and militarism for the coming year is not $901 billion. It's more like $1.7 trillion.
Oh, good Lord. That does not count the Central Intelligence Agency, whose budget is not made known to the public.
It does. CIA is included in that. And this is where it gets really difficult because there's a military intelligence program and a national intelligence program. But the military intelligence agencies also get money out of the national intelligence program. So we do know that the top line number for our intelligence programs, whether they be the CIA or the NSA and all the 16 other intelligence agencies that fall under the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. We do know that that budget is about $115 billion. But of course, there may be other billions of dollars that are tucked away in other accounts. And then certainly there's a lot of stuff that occurs off the books that we know the CIA has been involved with and other intelligence agencies have been involved with throughout the years.
These one-shot deal appropriations to Israel, where do they come in?
So they're funded separately. So what you have is a military assistance program that goes through the State Department and is funded through the State Department authorizations. So when you look at the $3.8 billion a year that we've been giving Israel for the last 10 years, which as people are aware is up for renegotiation. And now the Israelis want a 20-year deal. And if we've been giving them $3.8 billion over the last 10 years every year, we can imagine we're probably going to give them $5 or $6 or $8 billion a year going forward. I don't think that's far-fetched. But that $3.8 billion we give every year to Israel, as well as, say, the $1 billion we give to Egypt every year, and the billions of dollars that get spread throughout the world, that comes out of the State Department budget, as well as the arms sales come out of the State Department as well. So, in addition to what I just explained there in terms of the costs that aren't included in NDAA, you do have tens of billions of dollars that go to military assistance and arms sales that fall underneath the State Department. So it's another way to hide the cost of our militarized foreign policy.
Wow. Should Trump have mocked Rob Reiner within 24 hours of his being slaughtered in his own home?
Judge, I think if anyone was in doubt that Trump is one of the greatest narcissists of all time, reading that tweet or that Truth Social post of his about Rob Reiner in the hours after the discovery of Reiner and his wife's death, and immediately having to attribute it to himself, right? Rob Reiner's murder has to be about me. I mean, if anyone had any doubt about the scale of this man's narcissism, but, just the sense that we have a president who can't keep his mouth shut, who can't be decent for more than a couple hours. I mean, it's just, this is a state of the country reflected in our leadership. And when, as that old saying goes, a fish rots at the head. I think you can, you can see that clearly here with the U.S.
Well, last question for you. Actually, I'll play a little clip and then you can respond to it. Chris, I'm looking for the clip where Zelensky. Here it is, number 15. Watch this.
And it will only work if there is true accountability, if the punishment of the aggressor becomes inevitable. Yes, it's not easy, but it's not as difficult as some may try to portray it. Right now, European leaders have the decision on the table regarding frozen Russian assets. Most of these assets allocated in Europe, and these Russian assets can and must be fully used to defend against Russia's own aggression. The aggressor must pay.
Where Trump is on this, but here is Zelensky asking his European benefactors to steal $300 billion from banks. I mean, what's the effect going to be on the banking industry if a government can just go into a bank account and take the money?
Well, that's certainly, Judge, what the Belgians have been saying. They're the ones who have the bulk of the money in their bank, that Euroclear bank. But now we see more countries coming out, particularly Italy, saying this is wrong. This is fundamentally wrong. This is breaking the law, and it's going to have really great repercussions. There are going to be consequences here. The Russians have already started legal proceedings against the Belgians. And, the idea, too, as well, that the Russians have said we will essentially go tit for tat. If you take away our assets, you steal our assets, we will steal the assets that we possess of your people. You know what I mean? So the madness in all this, and I think what we're seeing, in that speech by Zelensky, I think what we've seen in the last couple of days coming out of the Europeans is the understanding that the jig is up, and that the war in Ukraine is going to come to an end unless there is some type of event that occurs that precludes that forces the war to go on. But I think for the most part, the Europeans, including Zelensky, understand that the war is coming to an end. And for the Europeans, the issue then is how do we keep this project going? How do we keep this grift going? How do we keep this need for our public to be afraid going in order for us to prosper, in order for us to benefit, in order for us to even stay in power? And so I think, now this idea of, say, this loan, a large part of it was to ensure the Ukrainian government doesn't collapse, right? To make sure that the Ukrainian government can pay their salaries, that pensioners receive their money, the fire trucks are still running, as well as the fact that the troops on the front lines are able to have bullets and shells and the things that they need. But also, too, for the Europeans, Judge, a lot of this was the fact that couple $100 billion loan that they're talking about, that gets repurposed, that gets recirculated, that stays within Europe. A lot of that money is never going to leave France or Germany or the UK. It's going to go right into their weapons industries, their technology companies, their development consultants, right? I mean, all those parasites, all those vampires that feed off of the ruination and the carnage of the Ukraine war. I think there is an aspect of Keynesianism here. I've seen more people talking about this in terms of the Europeans recognizing how much they have hollowed out their continent, how they have deindustrialized so much, how they neglected the needs of their people so much that the only thing to keep Europe afloat, maybe I'm getting a little hyperbolic here, but the only thing that they envision keeping Europe afloat and maybe kickstarting it to a new phase is this infusion of money into their defense sector, that somehow war spending, just as it did, say, in the United States in the 1940s, is going to revolutionize, rebuild, restart their economy. And so the desperation here that's coming from the Europeans, I think, is only going to worsen in the next couple of weeks as we potentially come closer to this, god-awful war finally coming to an end.
Matt Ho, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated, my dear friend. We'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Absolutely. Thanks, Judge.
Thank you. And coming up later today at 3 o'clock, Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski, and tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, Tucker Carlson. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.